In every record there's a story to be told. Into the world of music and more. Music and melodies and memories are in store. From Elvis to polka, we have it all. And Kenny's music and more, you'll have a ball. You'll have a ball. You'll have a ball.
Hello, welcome everybody.
Hi, Kenny.
How many
Hi,
people
Kenny.
are watching?
Hello,
who we're
Kenny.
talking to right now? Two?
Do we have any live right now? They'll check in here shortly, hopefully.
Yeah.
Well, anyway, thank you for holding on for an extra week here. We always try to aim right to get once a month, and sometimes our schedules are pretty hard to get 6 people together on one night. And so, thank you everybody. And as you know, anybody that is maybe new to the show, you don't know, but we all rotate a pick, and this week our pick of the month is going to be Josh. And so with that, we like to listen beforehand because of copyright rules, and so we don't play that for you, but you can feel free, if you know about the album, to give us some feedback. Even if the show isn't live, add some stuff afterward. We'll try to add that if we catch it and try to talk about it later on. But also, then we talk about it a little bit, and we try to save an abundance for the show as well. But we really had a good talk on this, and we're going to continue on to the show. So with that, let's get into Josh and tell us a little bit of what you picked, of course, and why you picked this album.
My pick is 1986's David Lee Roth's Eat 'Em and Smile, the first full-length David Lee Roth solo album after he leaves Van Halen. I picked this record because everybody kind of has a record that kind of defines their youth, and this one is probably it for me. There would be some, I could make some cases for some other ones, but when it all comes down to it, this was the one. This is the one that resonated with me the most. It's got a wide swath of musical styles and influences in it. I kind of realized that you could be a really good guitar player and a flashy guitar player without the name of Eddie Van Halen when I heard this record. And it just kind of became influential to me. There are just a lot of standout tracks on this. And the more I listen to it, the more I hear some little intricacies in the guitar work, the bass playing, the drumming. Anybody that's known me for any length of time, a lot of my compatriots and guitar playing buddies they will tell you that Josh will tell you that this is probably the best rock band that was ever put together. That would be my words. Nobody would really, that would be the one thing. Josh says David Lee Roth's first band was his best band ever.
Well, who was in the band?
So it was David Lee Roth, of course, Steve Vai, who had just come from, he left, was released by Frank Zappa because he was too good to waste his talents with Frank, and did some work with Alcatraz, replaced Yngwie Malmsteen, did some work with Public Image Limited, answered an ad to be a guitar player, try out for David Lee Roth, didn't think he'd ever get it, got it. Billy Sheehan is the bass player on this record, came from Talus. They were really looking to put a really solid band together of very talented musicians. Billy Sheehan got the tap, he came in. And then Greg Bissonette, who is a jazz drummer in the LA scene, had worked with a lot of famous people, a lot of famous jazz people, comes in and drums on this record. Matt Tuggle is the keyboard player on a couple of tracks, and then there's some other artists that supply some background vocals and some strings and things through this. Produced by Ted Templeton. Ted Templeton came with David Lee Roth to produce this record from Van Halen. And then the other thing that became real big for me is that we used to trade VHS tapes of live concerts. So people with camcord, they'd shoot these cameras, and then we would make copies of them and trade them. So I have like 7 or 8 VHS tapes of this tour and the subsequent tour, and it's all crappy footage. It's you can barely make it out, but it's kind of cool. You kind of get the essence of the stage show. So this launched me into a bunch of. Ever since, I've followed everything that Billy Sheehan does. I've followed everything that Steve Vai has done. I kind of got away from David a little bit. I still like his music up through the 3rd album. At the 4th album, there's good songs. He's an excellent musician. I really love his voice, his style. Some people are better off keeping their mouths shut about other things than music. He can be one of those, just like anybody that's watched the show before knows I'm a big Eric Clapton fan. I feel the same way about Eric Clapton. I think you should just play music and write music and talk about music. But anyway, I digress. Yeah, so Eat 'Em and Smile. Iconic cover. Iconic record.
It's almost like Frank Zappa had it right. Shut up and play your guitar.
Frank had it right a lot of times. So,
Well, to piggyback on that, I will actually break my Elvis record and go within 2 minutes of
7
7 minutes and say that Elvis actually said that. Elvis said that I am not a politician. He said I'm a musician, and he said I'm not going to venture there. And he said I will make music to affect people, and I won't talk politics. So I don't even know what Elvis's politics were, to be honest, because that was his rule.
It's all right to have your beliefs and put them out there. That's why it's you have to separate them from like their music, because there's so many artists that I listen to where it's like I don't agree with any of your stuff, but like, damn, you're a hell of a musician. I'm gonna listen to this album.
But there are a lot of people that will listen to an artist, like an artist, then find out what their politics are or whatever. They'll say something about something that they disagree with, and then they'll wash their hands of that artist.
Yeah, sours it.
And I get it, but if you're to the point where you idol worship somebody to that point where you have to believe or disbelieve everything that they mean, it's probably not healthy anyway. Yeah. So every artist that I like has done or said something that I do not agree with, but that doesn't make them more
irrelevant
or less right than what I am. So I appreciate musicians, actors. I just appreciate the art they put out there, and then I just kind of distance myself from some of the other stuff.
Separate the art from the artist.
I like that.
Case in point, this album alone, Rush Limbaugh used Ladies' Night in Buffalo, Big Trouble, and Bump and Grind as bumper music.
Oh, wow.
So, there you go. But, say what you will about Rush Limbaugh, he was a DJ long before he got into talk radio, and the guy had an incredible sensibility when it came to music. Art Bell, too. A lot of these old-time radio guys, they were DJs first, and they knew good music. And so when they got into another format or whatever, they brought that with. Limbaugh was the first guy to actually take this stuff and not the Montavanis and other stuff like that as bumper music. But it set a good trend, and some of those guys had. And there's plenty of people that hate Rush Limbaugh, but you got to admit, dude had some bangers for bumper music.
Billy Sheehan has some politics that I don't agree with, but Billy Sheehan could light a Bible on fire and piss off the entire world, and he'd still be my favorite bass player of all time in the rock genre. I mean, there's nothing else. There's nobody else that can do it. So, but back to this, Kenny, what did you think?
So, I think I had made the comment too that at the time we're looking at 86. I'm 13 years old. I'm not. I know the stuff that's on the pop radio. The songs that would cross over, obviously, and so I'm not. I have friends who are into Metallica and things at the time now as they're coming out, and I'm just it's too heavy for me at that time, because I'm more pop orientated, and so when I think of David Lee Roth, the song that I absolutely love, and when I think of him, I think of I'm Just a Gigolo. And to me, I would watch him, and I see the California Girls as a kid. Then when I go to MTV and I'd see this stuff, and I've always pictured David Lee Roth as just as fun, loving, and wants to have fun with stuff. And so big personality, and that's what I see and what I come to when I think of David Lee Roth. And so I got some of that again when we get to that last song, and I'm like, this is it. I love it. That big band type of guy who just comes out and he has this big personality, and he sells me, and so I like the record. I had a lot of fun with the record. I never listened to the whole thing. I knew a few of them from growing up, and so I resonate with those songs and I love them. But I actually enjoyed the record. I really loved it.
Lancelot.
I enjoyed it. This is another one I feel like I've slept on now. Like going to as many like record shops. Like you see this album a lot, and I knew Yankee Rose. I think that's the only song I knew going into this one. But yeah, seeing it now, I'm like, oh, maybe I should have snagged a copy of this at some point. Like I really dug it. I've heard the name Steve Vai, like being a guitarist, a bassist, a musician. Like I've heard that name growing up, but once again, hadn't listened to a lot of his stuff. I really liked how he lived within the song. Like he could dominate any part of that song, but there were times he was pulling back, and Billy Sheehan was really working. Like those two really balanced each other out, and I think that I really enjoyed that aspect of it. I like David Lee Roth. Sometimes his voice is a little much for me,
Right.
but I do like him. It's very iconic, but this is a great album. I think I'll definitely keep my eye open for a copy because, like you said, you kind of gave us heads up. Listen to the bass, and yeah, Billy Sheehan. That's not a name I'm familiar with. Maybe I'm going to try and branch off and check out more of what he's done. But yeah, just as an album as a whole, just really good. I was surprised how much I enjoyed that one. But, yeah.
The Guru Brad.
Well, I
Speak to me,
you know,
Guru.
I'm older, so I remember when it came out in the stores, and I think some people, if they weren't tracking well or something, or they lived under a rock, they thought, oh, it's a David Lee Roth solo album, and he carries on with Van Halen. But there's a whole story that has gone on with the band where he's in and out, and Sammy Hagar's in, and I don't begin to understand all of that, but I do know that when this came out on MTV, if at any hour you turned on MTV, you would see California Girls, which was the precursor on an EP, according to what Josh said, that was probably cut in the same sessions,
No,
or not? Before,
Yep.
but then the album came. Okay. You could have fooled me. I thought maybe it's all one thing. And I don't think that Van Halen fans with going to a David Lee Roth solo album would be disappointed in any way, because everything is delivered here I'm not saying it's a Van Halen record, but everything is delivered here by David Lee Roth. And he could, you would not be disappointed in picking up this record. If you've never heard it, you've never, you skipped it. I think he delivers on everything there. I wanted to say that the song Elephant Gun, which I'd never heard before, to me epitomizes everything David Lee Roth is. For some reason, everything contained in that song, if I had to say one song did it, it would be that. And you hear it, and you hear all these different. This is a great picture of the label. The A side has some more album artwork on it, and there are covers on this album. I really think those are fun. Tobacco Road, especially, which is a blues classic kind of from the '60s, and that also comes in line with what Josh was saying. There's kind of a wide angle here of who David Lee Roth is. But I remember this showing up on the record shelves and people going, what is this all about? I mean, I think maybe some people were thinking, this would be the very end of everything, but it really wasn't. It's just part of the story.
That's a good line.
I would also say that, and I don't want to blow this up, Josh, but the entire, which I have a lot of respect for this, the whole album, he recut it in Spanish. And I'm going to take that, you can elaborate more on that in just a little bit, but I just think that's a huge amount of work. I mean, he put a lot into this thing. The guitar work is fun to listen to. It's great. The bass player, I had a a bass player subscription magazine, and I think Billy Sheehan
It's on the cover.
was on every other issue. It seemed like he was just a giant in the bass world. But it's an interesting record, and I think that the musicianship and the production really comes very well together in this thing. I was really pleasantly surprised. But again, if you listen to Van Halen and then all of a sudden this came out and was on your turntable, I don't think you'd be disappointed at all. I think it was another avenue, it was another thing, and it would have been very fulfilling to hear David Lee Roth in that solo mode.
Michael?
Oh, Brad said everything I was going to say.
Oh, I'm sorry.
That's okay.
That's not true.
Well, something Brad mentioned while we were listening to it that he did. The album itself the fidelity of this album, it really jumps out as far as, you know,
Even on the
just
house
sound of
system
it.
here, right?
Even on the
Really made the
awesome
B&O
house-
sound awesome. Right record?
Sorry,
Banging all
I
in
had to. I'm sorry.
especially at a time, you know,
Those
this
great
is getting
speakers.
in the not late 80s, but there's a lot of 80s stuff that doesn't translate very well. This one does. As far as Dave, I mean, you can't go wrong with an album that's got Steve Vai and Billy Sheehan on it. And for Dave's first solo album, he's got to come out all guns blazing.
Yep.
I mean, that's just, you're either going to sink or swim.
Yep.
Yeah. And it's you know, you said Steve Vai never wanted to be an Eddie Van Halen, and he isn't an Eddie Van Halen, but him stepping into the role of David Lee Roth's guitar player, he's always going to have that weight on his shoulder.
Yep.
Yeah. I mean, that's just the way it is. He's gone on to making, you know, a career for himself. He's not, you know.
Right.
But you get at that point in the 80s where the guitarist, it was a matter of who can be the fastest, and that definitely comes across in this album. And some of that stuff's just a product of its time.
Right.
I like the album. I've never heard it in its entirety. Like I said, I've probably heard half of it, just stuff on the radio or on the, you know, music apps. But it's exactly what you'd expect out of David Lee Roth in 1986, and it's a fun album. Sounds good.
Clint?
Well, this is by far my favorite album of any one that we've picked so far since I've joined the show, including
No,
any of
wait,
my own.
that's even better than the Miami Vice song.
Even better than Miami Vice. They're contemporaries. Of
I
each
can't
other,
believe
you know.
that.
Same time frame.
So this most certainly, I think, is peak David Lee Roth. David Lee Roth, the showman. I think this is the kind of thing he's still trying desperately to cling to and needs to just let it go. But yeah, exactly. So, you know, post Van Halen. So he did his EP, which some could say maybe was a dip in the toe in water. Others might say it was a vanity project, whatever. But he comes out guns blazing with this. He assembles an absolute supergroup. Now, this was my introduction to Billy Sheehan, but that's all I needed. And then, yeah, it's just it's a fantastic record. It is a David Lee Roth record. It is most certainly not a Van Halen record by any stretch of the imagination. And he is a character, and the character comes out of this record. Now, this one actually has kind of a soft spot in my heart because I didn't allude to this during the show or Britt mentioned it at all, but at a point where I was with my best friend at the time, Sean Melhoff, we're moving out to the Rocky Mountains to be snowboard bums and whatever, and this was kind of our album. His license plate on his Toyota Celica, which we lived in for a while, being snowboard bums, that's pretty cramped, actually had Shy Boy on the license plate. And I used to tease him, it's like, you know, Bananarama did Shy Boy in '82. But and I remember stopping in some dinky little podunk eastern Montana town, and we parked next to a pickup, look out, and dude's got Shy Boy on his plate too, and we're like, yeah, there's no way this guy's a Van Halen or a David Lee Roth fan. But Yeah, great album. And then, of course, about the time that we're out there in the mountains, then out comes Mr. Big, and first track right off the bat, Addicted to That Rush, was just it totally showcases Billy Sheehan again. Great time, and a lot of times we talk about or we bring in music or whatever that has that association. That's what music does. Maybe that's one of the reasons why I'm just so gung ho about this particular album. But yeah, it's a great one. We talk about Steve Vai and Eddie Van Halen comparisons and who's stepping into whose shoes or whatever. But when you think of Eddie Van Halen, obviously there are the stylistic elements to how he plays, and I'm not a guitarist, but I mean there's that signature Eddie Van Halen sound. But in a way, Eddie Van Halen means proficiency, and you look at the proficiency of the artists that are backing David Lee Roth on here, and they're second to none. So, great album. I was really excited to see that this is what you picked.
So let me ask you this, though. So bringing out a David Lee Roth album naturally brings us into the Van Halen split.
Mm-hmm.
And we talked that there's songs on this that would resonate with Van Halen fans.
Mm-hmm.
Do you think Dave just? You think he was intent? He had bigger aspirations, but he wasn't an idiot either.
Right.
So was he still trying to hold on to the Van Halen fans,
Maybe.
or didn't he have the balls to jump in
Well,
full force and do what he wanted to do? And
maybe a lot of the Van Halen sound was, due in part to David Lee Roth. Maybe it wasn't all Eddie and Alex. So,
Maybe that's true. I think David is a big part of Van Halen for sure. I mean, there's Van Hagar and Van Halen, so there's that argument too. And that ends up being two completely different bands. So there's not really much comparison. Van Halen though continues to be Van Halen. You can still make out a Van Halen song, even the album with Gary Cherone. You can tell it's a Van Halen album. So, Dave steps out. Does he go? I mean, if David Lee Roth had written all these songs, probably. Steve Vai and Dave write most of the songs on here, except Shy Boy, which is a Tallis Billy Sheehan song, and the two covers. Steve Vai went in not wanting to be the next Eddie Van Halen. It doesn't sound like Eddie Van Halen's guitar playing. It's similar stylistically, but was he trying to keep the Van Halen fans? Absolutely. Right. Did he alienated half the fan base when they split ways. Mm-hmm. So he's trying to bring those people back. Probably on the shoulders of Steve Vai. I mean, you can't have Willie Nelson come in and play guitar on here. So
right. Right. I mean, but that goes back to the art. He had to come out.
But you also, and it's a good point though, but you would never seen a cover of That's Life on a Van Halen album either. Mm-hmm. So that showman spot, piece that you were talking about earlier.
That's what I'm saying. I think there's elements of where he wanted to go within this album, but there's songs that are just bangers that are like, okay, this would obviously appeal to a Van Halen song, and yep. This might be just his attempt at bringing those fan base with.
But again, like I've talked about before on the show, and just in general, there were two camps, and you picked a side. There were very few people that were, it is what it is. It was Van Halen or David Lee Roth. It was Warrant or Poison. You just. We talked about it with the grunge thing too. You were a Soundgarden fan or you weren't.
But how long did the David Lee Roth thing really last? I mean, I was young at that time, but just looking back, did a lot of people start tailing off from David Lee Roth that went with him?
Sure, but David Lee Roth's career starts to wane in the early '90s. So he gets his third album out, and it's a fantastic record. It's I can see the cover. A Little Ain't Enough.
Mm-hmm. Oh, A Little Ain't Enough. Yep.
It's a fantastic record. but it gets caught up in that grunge wave, right? The people that would argue his relevance, David Lee Roth's still around. David Lee Roth's still making music. David Lee Roth is still projecting his flamboyant showmanship to the world and anybody that will watch it. So he didn't spend, I mean, he doesn't release music, but like we've talked before, there was a good 15, 20 years that Van Halen didn't do anything, or 10 years that they just didn't do anything, and Dave was still out. So I don't know. I've kind of grown past the comparisons. But it is. I think it's definitely like a crossover record for David Lee Roth to try to keep some old fans, garner some new ones. That was another reason why the EP was such a big deal, was it was trying to bring people over and show that David Lee Roth is more than just this front man in this hard rock, this rock band. He's more than that. He's more of a showman. He can do the Frank Sinatra covers. He can do Beach Boys. He can do things. He's more versed musically than just being the singer in Van Halen. So,
But that's not necessarily what the Van Halen fans wanted.
no, absolutely not.
They wanted David Lee Roth, the guy that
Right.
chugs Jack Daniels and
Right.
screws groupies in
Yep.
the dressing room.
Yeah, but you know,
That's
other
what they
people buy
want.
records too.
So,
But do the other people look at it the other way too? They think David Lee Roth's just a joke as this lead singer from this rock band. You know,
Well, that
it's a
was
thin line. He was.
Yeah.
and he was, the neat thing about Dave was that he was able to do it though. I mean, the EP, the covers on this record, all the stuff that he's done late, he is good. He is really, really good. He is a good singer. Even now, you go watch David Lee Roth sing. Things are tuned down because he's 70 something years old. He can still perform. We'd all be lucky to be jumping around and doing the things that he does at that age. So,
Yeah, Eddie was the one who got the hip replacement.
Yeah.
You see him doing all the splits.
right? Neat thing about this record, though, and you kind of alluded to it, Clint, is that Billy Sheehan goes on to be in Mr. Big with Paul Gilbert, Eric Martin. You hear kind of the foundations of what they're going to do in this record. So what Paul Gilbert and Billy Sheehan are going to do, where they're kind of mirroring each other, that's all over this record. They did that on purpose. It was to double up the sound, to make the production bigger and sound like there was more going on. That very much follows into Mr. Big. Steve Vai on Bump and Grind, you hear the beginning, you hear what's going to become that trademark Steve Vai sound, that passion and warfare, that real vibrant, open, moody, translucent kind of sound that just becomes. So there's a lot of foundations going forward. And the unsung hero of this record, to this day, nobody will ever be able to argue with me. It's Greg Bissonette, the drummer. A jazz drummer comes in and plays one of the rock records. He's super animated. I highly encourage anybody to go watch Greg Bissonette on YouTube. Some of his videos are absolutely fantastic. Drummers especially. If you're not a drummer, go watch it. He's a drummer that has comments that people like to listen to. So, it just really...
Well, this
really
might be a
well
great
rounded.
time too to add that if anybody has any feedback on some of this
comments,
too,
yeah.
make sure to put a comment in. We'll try to read it on the air.
Brad wanted me to touch on the Spanish version. So, story goes, Billy came in and said, "Hey, we're missing out on a major market. This is Spanish language folks are 18 to 24. It's a demographic that's really not targeted. People don't really do much." So David goes back into the studio with a Spanish tutor. They record the entire album. He re-records all the lyrics in Spanish. So there's a complete Spanish version of this record out. The music is exactly the same. The one song is a little shorter. There's a little dialogue at the end of one song that they cut out of the Spanish version. They release it. It's not well received. It's white people speaking Spanish is kind of how it felt. So it doesn't last long. But There's an entire record out there. We have it here. I showed it tonight. The Going Crazy single, which was the second single. Yankee Rose was the first single. Of course, Going Crazy was the second single. The Spanish version of Going Crazy actually appears on the single. So it's actually a really fun record to listen to, because you still get the same character. It's still David Lee Roth emoting and singing and presenting in Spanish. So it's as much fun as this record is to me.
There's not many artists that are going to take the time to learn how to sing just to speak in a different language, let alone sing in a different language and record a whole album.
Well,
in
it might
such a
be
fashion.
easier though than you think, right? So if you literally just have to translate and read the words, and somebody's there to teach you so you're
I
not
suppose.
learning the language,
Yeah,
you're
I
just kind of
suppose.
reading stuff. It might actually not be as complicated as we think it is. Kudos to somebody that's willing to take a chance though and have a record label that's willing to let somebody go back in the studio and re-record all the lyrics to a record. I mean, that's just kind of the weight that Dave pulled with him when he left Van Halen, so with Warner Brothers. So yeah.
Typically these foreign language records would come out in the country of that language.
Right.
And so like in the 60s, like Wanda Jackson, she's got an entire German album, and it came out only in Germany, as far as I know. ABBA did songs in Swedish, French, and German, but we don't hear about them so much here. But they were singles in Europe, so that happened a lot in the '60s. So in the middle of the '80s, somebody goes and does this. I just think that's pretty cool.
How did Waterloo go over in France?
Yeah, I don't know, but that was one of the songs that they actually did do in a different language.
Yeah.
And I think I might even have one of those in my collection.
Well, that'd be cool.
Well, that kind of, I think, even speaks to what you said, or we were talking about too, the whole idea of the showman, and he's willing to take those risks, and to have fun with that. Because like I said, I've always just viewed him as this. He loves to have fun, right?
Yeah. Well, I watched a little bit of the first season of his very first video podcast way back in the day. Shoot, that's probably 20 years ago already, wasn't it?
Oh yeah.
And that lends some context to what the mindset that he probably had putting this record together. He's always been a character.
Hey, he replaced Howard Stern on WNBC.
Wow.
I believe so. Was it WNBC or was it after that? Was it K-Rock?
Oh boy, I don't know.
But when Howard Stern got fired from one of the radio stations, it must have been after WNBC. It must have been K-Rock, and then it was K-Rock actually, because then David Lee Roth becomes the morning man on that show, and David had been a guest on Howard Stern's show many, many times, and after he took over that spot, then David's never been back on Howard's show, so that would more of the showman thing.
Now, could we say also some of this battle that what you two were talking about earlier, and how we have this split up, and when some people left David Lee Roth because of the whole Van Halen split, and we have this defection, right? And we've talked about this. I think personally, I don't know how much of this we've talked on the air about this whole challenge, though, as artists change, right? And they want to explore some of their freedom as an artist to go on, and how we get a lot of defections from people because they don't they get stuck into this mode of how they're hearing their artist, but they want to go on and do something else, right? We see it with so many artists who have stand the test of time.
I remember, case in point, U2, they did a lot of experimental stuff. When Achtung Baby came out, I remember some people were taking their CDs back because they thought they were defective because Zoo Station was so crunchy and awkward starting, and people were taking their CDs back. They thought they were defective. And that was another album we had. I was working for the college newspaper at the school I was going to at the time, and we had a couple girls there that, of course, college girls, and they're just gushing over the new U2 album. So on a Friday afternoon, a buddy of mine and I went and we checked out at the library a CD of Mexican polkas and swapped them, and then went home for the weekend. So, I'll gush on that. Anyway, I digress.
But we can see that though with a lot of other artists, right?
Yeah, I actually would be one of the guys that would say I like it when bands break up or split, because then you end up with, you still have something old and something new, right? So every band breaks up from internal conflict. It usually is creative differences. So when one piece of that spins off and goes and does their own thing, as the audience you grow. I don't know that the trajectory of other people, other artists, is as defined now today as it would have been if David Lee Roth would have stayed in Van Halen, right? Some of these other things wouldn't have necessarily happened. But because he left, we just get more music. We get to see more of David Lee Roth's character. We get to see Dave do stuff that he might not have been able to do in Van Halen if that was the case, or he just didn't want to do it under their name, or whatever the situation was, right? And when it comes to fans, I've really gone to the art. I want the artist to do what makes the artist feel happy, and if it's what I like, I'll stay with them, and if it's not what it is, I'm not going to judge them for it. That's their choice. They're doing it. They're making it. It's their thing. They're not making records just to suit me, so it is what it is. I think of, when it comes to that, like gaining fans, even though it's not a breakup, I was a huge Metallica fan until the Black Album. And the Black Album was when everybody started liking Metallica.
Right.
But I liked it before it was popular. So I felt like an old school Metallica fan, listening to Ride the Lightning and stuff in the early 80s, my God. And then you hear basically what would be characterized. Sorry if there's any Metallica fans like it's very commercialized, and it was on purpose, and the music is very good. It just didn't resonate the same way with me. Now, does that mean that I'm not going to be on my phone tomorrow at noon trying to get tickets to go see Metallica at the Sphere in Vegas in October?
Oh.
Absolutely not. I will be there with bells on trying to get tickets. But that's not it. They're not making the records for me. They're making the records for the bigger fan base. Everybody's going to grow. This is one of my favorite records of all time. I didn't listen to this record for 10 years, I bet, because my musical taste just kind of it flowed on. It went a different direction. So, and I never lost sight of this. It just didn't resonate the same way with me at certain times in my life. So you don't necessarily have to follow somebody the entire time. Come back, listen to that stuff. If there's some of the most fun you ever have is go back, and if you're 30, 40, 50 years old, go back and listen to the same stuff you listened to in junior high one time and see what it does. See what memories it brings back to you.
But don't you think that also happened with a lot of those 80s bands at the end of the 80s? A lot of them became more commercialized.
Well, they were all commercialized.
Yeah.
I mean, it was by the late 80s, it was literally the labels were signing everybody to hope that they would have a power ballad that would be a hit. That's what it was. And that we lost out on some really, really good bands over that. There's some bands that just never took off because the market was so flooded with it.
And then Nirvana came and just cleared the table with everybody.
But
So as a movie guy, talking about, the evolution of your favorite artists and things like that, I see all the time in the movie discussions online, people are saying, if we just get a sequel to whatever. It's like, no, you will never, ever recapture what you got from the first time you watched your favorite movie. Now, there have been notable exceptions, and the 80s were prime time for movies, so I would say Beverly Hills Cop 2 is better. Aliens is better than Alien. There are some noteworthy times where a sequel comes out and it actually does build upon and succeed even further than the first one. But Aliens 3 sucked. Beverly Hills Cop 3 sucked. My point is, you can't sustain the magic forever.
Right.
And the same goes with, okay, there's AC/DC, I get it. But you can't keep doing the same thing forever. At some point, you're going to tire out. And so you're stuck with this. well, I want what I got the first time I put that record in, and you're never going to get it. And it's the same time when you went to the first Back to the Future movie. Sorry, it doesn't work that way. So, find what you like about your favorite artist that period, and it is a snapshot in time. It relates to where you were at the time in life, what happened, it takes you back. But at some point, you got to let them move on.
Well, as you say that too, I think I like the relevance to the movie because I always think of that best with Adam Sandler. Adam Sandler and Billy Madison was pretty funny, when he's 20. But when he's still trying to do that at 40, it wasn't very funny anymore. Right? So you have to have some kind of evolution. And we have to let that happen.
Well, and a particular album may kind of capture a certain zeitgeist. Not this album, because David Lee Roth, he is his own thing. You're not going to look out there and see even 2 or 3 more David Lee Roths. That just isn't going to happen. But a lot of times, a record does kind of capture something. Case in point, if we want to go back to movies, not too much, but Zoolander. Zoolander was hilarious because it absolutely just made the perfect mockery of the self-important fashion community in the 90s. They come out with Zoolander 2, and that fashion ain't what it was,
Right.
and it falls completely flat because it's trying to keep a premise going of a slice in time that no longer exists. So, some of these albums are just perfect for their time, but they're not going to apply for very long.
Well, I also want to bring that back to Metallica again because I think an interesting thing to look at it now is, like I said, I've already told you earlier, right? I didn't like Metallica early on. Okay, and so then now let's go back to Metallica, like what you were saying, right, Black? So I hear that. Now I start going back, and now as I'm getting older, some of that stuff that I couldn't listen to then, right, the Lightning, I see it now, and I'm like, wow, like I wish I could have found a way to dig it back then, but I love it now because of getting on board with that.
But then some of the times you expand I think as young people, you walk around, you have such a narrow view of what the world is that you walk around with these blinders on, and our parents sit around trying to get us to knock the blinders off and look at the bigger picture instead of being so self-centered and focused. So you look at this, I'm listening to this stuff, there is a lot of music that is going on around it that I am not paying any attention to because I'm walking around like this. I'm focused on this. This is what I like. I'm not. As I've gotten older, the more I listen to, the blinders have come off. So now I'm starting to, okay, this was really popular then too, I guess. So let me listen to that and see what there is. So like, I'm listening to this. I'm not listening to Madonna. Okay? It's just not. It's just not my thing. But I ended up like later on when I wasn't so narrow-minded and being basically such kind of a elitist prick about what music I listened to. Then I started listening to Madonna, and there was a lot of good stuff in there. I hated Like a Virgin because they were playing that video instead of Yankee Rose, and I didn't like it. But I eventually grew to not be so narrow-minded, self-righteous, and think that just my tastes were the only ones that mattered.
That'll always happen. There's always going to be that music you dislike in the same era as the stuff that's like really popping off. Like I remember, middle school, it was a lot of like that, new metal, alternative, like hard rock type stuff. And yeah, you kind of turn your nose to a lot of the pop music that's on the radio, right? And now looking back, it's like, oh yeah, that was a banger back in high school. I didn't want to admit that, but yeah, that one's a banger. We'll add that one to the playlist.
I'll never admit that about a
Some
new
of
metal
it,
song.
at least for me, listening, coming up listening. When I was growing up listening to CDs and my bands, I had my stereo, and I thought it was pretty cool. And it was, and I just set it up the other week. It's still fucking bad. Yeah. But fidelity was never something in my mind. It was just enjoying the music. So as I've grown up and gotten into, okay, I can afford better equipment, I can experience, I know the effect that this, with a kid, you don't know what different equipment is. A CD player is a CD player. So, probably in Josh's experience when he was first listening to this album in 1986 on the stereo he had then versus listening to it now, on a stereo he's got now. He's built a stereo like we do. It can be like listening to it for the first time.
Oh, for
because
sure.
you've got this equipment that can bring out everything that's been recorded. And that's what I find a lot now in going back and listening to things is I'm going to see what I can, what was I missing out by listening to it on what I thought was a cool stereo then.
So now you like Fleetwood Mac Rumors?
No, it's still not gonna.
Is there anything that you do like now
But
that you
No,
didn't
I
then?
mean, there's nothing.
you hear new stuff.
Yeah, I mean, I'm not going to become a Fleetwood Mac fan just because I think.
I'll bring another
But-
album in. We'll see.
But you get the point. Is,
Yep.
or even a lot of people were listening to stuff in a CD player, tape player in their car, which is not the ideal environment to listen to something and be picking up on these little, intricate things. And
Well, listening to this record on your phone is not going to sound anywhere near the way it sounds here or on a CD or any type of physical medium. with
right,
a
so
different
that
equipment.
kind of goes back to just like you said, going back and re-listening to something. It can bring back those memories of when you were a teenager and listening to it, but it might have a different effect.
I can remember sitting in front of my TV with the VCR set to record, watching MTV,
Tape player.
and waiting for the Yankee Rose video to come on so I could hit record and watch it whenever the hell I wanted to.
We didn't have, for you young kids, we did not have YouTube at instant access. We had to do things like that. Or wait, and I was thinking when you said that, listen to the radio
Yeah.
with my cassette recorder.
Yeah.
Yeah, and
then-
growing up around here, we had top 40 format radio, period. And we had, at the time when this came out, we had Y93, which is now, what do they call it?
Not even
I
sure.
don't even know what they call it anymore.
For three months out of the year, it's
They
a
had
Christmas station.
94.5 was country and 96.5 was album rock,
Yeah.
and that was it. But MTV, they had what they called the MTV stereo hookup. Do you remember that, Brad? Because you're an engineer. They,
Yeah.
So what
Yeah.
it was is you could subscribe to have them hook up your stereo to cable TV, like a simulcast, through your FM tuner. Well, really, all it was is they just ran a wire from the coax down to your FM input, which I
Right.
figured out, and so then you would actually get the MTV feed into your actual stereo instead of just your television.
Oh, nice.
Yeah, so that's how we would roll. But up to
But
the antenna on
Kind
my
of going
boombox.
back to where Josh had said he'd gone years without listening to the.
Yep.
Part of that is it's as the generations go. Josh, when this album first came out, then he's getting into his 20s. Well, music shifts.
Changing.
The environment shifts.
So
The musical
in the
environment shifts.
environment, the style. So you're following what's popular at the time, and you're going to forget about Eat 'Em and Smile till you're older, and you can kind of get that chip off your shoulder and.
Yeah,
not-
maybe want to reminisce a little.
Well, not only that, we start to get more nostalgic, right?
Right.
It's like as a picker, right? When I'm going out, the things that people are buying now are the kids who are growing up now in the 90s and 2000s. They're trying to go back and
Well, they're-
dig that stuff.
They're going back to buy the stuff that their parents never bought them when they were
Yes,
kids.
yes,
That's
They
what
couldn't
do.
afford.
That's what really launched eBay. It was all us Gen Xers going and buying stuff that mom and dad couldn't afford. This record, to me, like I mentioned, my friend Sean that I moved out to the mountains with and stuff. He passed away a couple of years ago, and I just kind of associate this album with good times that I had with him. Not exclusively, but it always just kind of reminds me of him. And he had a set of those BES electric stat speakers. You guys familiar with those? They were just basically big pieces of styrofoam
Yeah,
with
elect-
drivers in them. They were just a flat
Electrostatic.
2-3 inch.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I remember popping the covers off, and with this album, just watching that styrofoam, I thought it was going to explode how much it would move. But yeah, that's
But I think we've had a really good conversation. And we've only got about 10 minutes left.
oh boy.
So let's move on to some of our records. So that was a great conversation. A lot of good stuff on that. And so
Great
let's
pick, Josh.
Thank you.
great pick. I enjoyed it.
Best pick. Okay, here's Kenny's album.
So I am going to talk about mine first, Buddy Holly. So I am a huge, like I said, oldies. My dad listened to a lot of oldies, and so picking up, listening to some of that, I fell in love with Buddy Holly. I remember putting in a Buddy Holly cassette into my car player and just running around. I was probably only a 16-year-old kid listening to Buddy Holly in the car. And so, love Buddy Holly. I think his stuff, if he would have lived beyond the crash, it would be interesting. I think I've always wondered to see where he would have went because he was very talented. So Buddy Holly, listen to him.
I don't have one for Lance. What'd you pick?
I don't even remember. It sold. So we
kudos to
checked
you.
we checked the ticket, so it wasn't good enough to get any votes. It was good enough to sell.
It's so fast.
You should check it out sometime.
It may have been a Fleetwood Mac album. We're not sure.
It could be a Fleetwood Mac record, yes.
It was just a mirage.
Yeah, I mean,
Nice.
hard to-
Well, Salesman of the Month,
Stevie Nicks.
still goes to Josh. Like, what, 3 albums last month?
Yeah, it was something crazy.
So,
Brad, what did you have?
Lou Reed's Berlin record. This is which I believe is the follow-up to Transformer, which was a big record, a big solo album for Lou Reed. And this did not have the appeal that Transformer had. This is a very dark record. There's you see the back cover there, it says sad song. There are sad songs on here. And it has a theme running through it. Lou is doing some very good songwriting, but at the same time, it's not a record that picks you up and makes you want to run out in the sunshine or anything like that. I believe one other thing, it was produced by Bob Ezrin, who was Alice Cooper's,
Kiss.
yeah, and
Pink
others.
Floyd,
Yep.
just about everybody.
And Bob did this, and then of course, after this, Lou did some live records that the RCA put out. I don't want to get on the live thing tonight, but those also contained members of the Alice Cooper band, the original. They went on to be in that band. But this is a kind of a dark record, so I take medication for depression, and I would recommend that you just go into an open mind with this. There were actually singles off this record, but they were nowhere hits.
I was going to say, it's always been a dead heat between him and Leonard Cohen whenever
Yeah.
I need a real pick-me-up.
Yeah, there you go. So I bet it didn't even get any votes.
No, I forgot.
Oh, yes, it got one.
Okay.
It did.
I thought
It
I was
just
going
said
to be the first
Brad's
guy to pick a CD,
Lou
but Mike
Reed.
was.
Anybody Holly's on there?
No,
Yeah, you got
Yes. I got it.
no America's Least Wanted either.
two. You had one.
Who voted for that one?
Super cool. That must have been you.
What?
You voted for your own record.
No. Super cool.
Super
stuff.
cool dad, that's your daughter. Come on, man.
Wow.
No.
Nepotism.
No.
Okay.
Your pick.
You're
Well, I
speechless. I was like,
This is pretty much the most influential album of all time.
To you.
Ugly Kid Joe, America's Least Wanted. Actually came out on my 10th birthday.
Really?
Can you believe that?
That's cool.
I don't know. It's just a fun album. They came out a year earlier than this album in '91 with the song Everything About You, which was, a kind of a tongue-in-cheek, fun song. This full-length album picks up right where that song is. It had, what did it have? Cats in the Cradle and Busy Bee were both fairly decent hits. I can't believe Kenny wasn't a fan of Cats in the Cradle. He likes Harry Chapin so much.
I love that song. That's one of my favorite
Do
songs.
you like the Ugly Kid Joe version?
I've actually never heard it. I'll listen to it now.
Homework.
In the sauna tomorrow.
You have homework.
But
I had to drop it.
You and Todd.
You guys.
it's just a solid album, and Clint's got the amended album artwork on it. The original artwork is like the Statue of Liberty, looking at porno magazines and giving the middle finger. So even as a 10-year-old kid, when I see that, I'm like, that's the coolest thing I've ever seen.
I just took a picture of whatever you had on the shelf.
Yeah. But these guys, again, were just kind of they had some good albums in the 90s. 3 albums and they disbanded.
Yep.
but they got back together around 2014 or 15 with the original, you know, after a probably nearly 20-year hiatus, maybe 18 at that time or 17, but really just kind of picked up where they left off, which is kind of rare for a band to do that, and they've been going strong since and put out a few albums in the past 10 years that are pretty much on par. They're one of those bands. They know what they are, and they know what the fan base is going to want, and
They stick
that's
to
what
it.
it's going to
Yeah,
be.
just do it.
Nice.
And we're sorry to anybody now that has to hear about Cats in the Cradle from Kenny. The Ugly Kid Joe version.
Little Boy Blue and the Man in the Moon.
Right. That was my plan B. That'll be my record next week.
Oh, okay.
That one there, yeah.
All right, so my pick was Master of Puppets, another very influential record. Arguably my favorite Metallica record. Probably I really like And Justice for All, though. I think they'd really hit their stride by then. But influential record to me, incredibly influential. The guitar playing is phenomenal. Kirk Hammett was great. I mean, we were chanting "Master, Master" in the 80s. And we didn't need Stranger Things to teach us how to do it.
I was gonna ask if you first heard this.
We also listened to Real Big Fish do it too in the early 90s. So big influential record, probably one of the greatest heavy metal thrash records of all time. So
Well, what I've sensed from you is that record is really pulling your strings.
yeah, yes, it was.
I was a hacker in the '80s, and a couple of guys that I was hacking with down in college and stuff. They were big Metallica fans, so I was exposed to that. Wasn't really my thing, but I would say the Black Album kind of turned me around on Metallica, and then I started looking back on them too. So, the Black Album probably was a gateway drug to a lot of people who had never
Could
listened
be, yeah.
before.
That's how it was for me, like growing up a '90s kid, right? Like that's. I feel like I grew up in the era of all the sellout albums, like the Offspring's
Yep,
Americana,
yep.
like Metallica's
Americana
Black.
was not a sellout album.
Hey, there's plenty of people who will tell you that that's when the Offspring sold out and Smash was their
Offspring,
like. But there's so many bands like that, right? Where it's like
Yep.
in the '90s, I swear they had like their big breakout hit, and that's when all the fans were like,
Here's my differentiation. Metallica's Black Album is super produced. It is fantastically produced. It sounds immaculate. It's great sounding record. It does not sound raw like Ride the Lightning,
See,
Master of Puppets,
right.
and Justice for All. It
It's
just
more
doesn't.
That's
It's
where
more
I have a problem. Like, and I like the early Metallica. Ride the Lightning's my favorite Metallica album. And I was just thinking about this yesterday. I was listening to Ozzy Osbourne Osmosis and thinking, God damn, this sounds good. There's just something about the '90s production on these rock albums that just
Well, they have
I
bass.
can't get over with. You know,
They have low end now.
Yeah.
it's not just Metallica. It's
Yep.
just
Yeah.
a lot of that stuff just sounds something. Every generation has their tropes and how they produce stuff. The '80s, but the '90s, some of that rock stuff just is.
Well, and speaking to Lance, to your experience, I had the same thing. It took me a little while to realize that Motley Crue didn't write "Smoking in the Boys' Room," or that that there were Def Leppard albums before Pyromania, or things like that. I think that just happens. Everybody, you reach a point in your adolescence where you start keying in on music. Like,
Well,
this
that's-
is really great, and then it's like, hey, wait a minute, there's plenty that
Well,
came
that
before
comes
this.
back to he brings up the Offspring, and I remember I was
Good job.
this isn't bad.
Okay.
But I remember when the Offspring with Smash in the same time as Green Day, but Offspring Smash, Keep Them Separated or Come Out and Play was a hit. Then to find out they had 2 albums
Before
prior
that.
to that, because a lot of people, again, growing up in Bismarck,
Missed it.
with our
3 channels.
our
Right.
3 channels and our
Yep.
2 radio stations, like that was your first introduction to the Offspring. And then to find, well, this is their first album. No, it's not. They got 2 albums prior to that. Well,
Right. There's a combination between A, like I said, you reach a point in adolescence where you become attuned to music, and then B, are you in a place where you're actually going to be exposed to that kind of music? And that's where the internet's really good about the democratization of music. People can get their stuff out there now. But if you're at the mercy of whatever the single top 40 station in town is.
You guys didn't read Metal Edge magazine in the 80s or the
I
guitar
did.
magazines,
So-
because you could literally go to the back of those magazines and literally send a stamped self-addressed envelope, and somebody would mail you a tape.
SASE.
Yep,
SASE.
all kinds of
I'd go
stuff.
Pick up a copy of Goldmine Records.
You
and
kids
then
will
Goldmine
never
magazine.
ever get to see any of that like we did.
Shrapnel Records had all kinds of stuff. My God.
Yeah, I had a buddy out. So, like I said, I was a hacker in the '80s on what later became the internet, and I had met a buddy who ended up being a DJ for KEXP out in Seattle. But we were fans of the band Yellow, and so we kind of hit it off, and we're chatting online, and he just said, "Well, send me tapes." So I bought a box of Denon D90 cassettes, and I would send them out there, and he would just load them up with industrial and new wave and techno and all kinds of different stuff off of these amazing import singles and stuff. He would do like 12-inch versions of stuff, and then he would just feed me those tapes back, and so that's how I ended up getting exposed to a lot of music I'd never encountered here.
And so what is your pick there, you guys? I think you're up.
Well, yeah, going with that same genre, I am bouncing off the satellites with the B-52s. This was the one that came out before, the one that really... Okay, so they had a hit with Rock Lobster prior to this. This one had one song that got some MTV airplay, Girl from Ipanema Goes to Greenland. Everybody remembers Cosmic Thing because, you know, that had stuff like Channel Z and Love Shack came later and all that sort of stuff. But this is just a pretty awesome album. The part where I key in on this is, well, first of all, it's a really creative and really fun record. The B-52s, you know, before they got played to absolute death on the radio, were a good, fun group. They're part of the Athens sound. I'm a big fan of the Athens sound of the late 80s, early 90s. REM came out of there, Kitchens of Distinction, stuff like that. So, Love Tractor, that type of thing. This is just a great one. One of the things that I did as a teenager is I hung out with a lot of the people that used to hang out at the Capitol when you could do that. And there'd be some people reading poetry, there'd be people playing Frisbee, there'd be people doing all kinds of fun things. And this is one of the albums of that. Also, you know, pretty decent stargazing music. I see this one's priced at $15, so apparently you've looked it up, and a lot of people are still interested in this one. But yeah, it's good, and it's you know, the same sort of stuff like you'd get with Love Shack and that sort of thing. But again, it's one of those earlier albums. It has that secret sauce to it. This is more B-52s than the other albums as they evolved out. So have a soft spot for that particular.
Well, the thing that I love about this is, you know, we got a pretty wide spectrum here of musical influence, and so we get a little bit of everything here, right? From the oldies to the classic rock to some electronics and electronica, whatever you want to call it, and classic rock. We got a lot of good stuff, and so let's get into we're getting late here. So who is our winner?
Was me with Metallica Master of Puppets.
So $10 if you tell me about
was
this.
the pick. Yep, and then besides Super Cool Stud, that one doesn't get picked. Michael, can't pick yourself.
See, we get nothing for this if our album is the most popular. Things
Bragging
like that.
rights.
Yeah. So
2 months in a row.
those don't buy
It's gonna
tacos.
be Sean Kuntz. He picked Buddy Holly.
Wow.
I'm so happy for you.
50% off for it. Anything in the store.
17 records of your choice free.
So
Well, there's no coupon this month, so.
So who's got next pick? Lance
me.
is up.
That's me.
Fleetwood Mac.
You're in for a treat.
Another
That's all I'll
Fleet.
say.
Oh, so you got it ready.
Whatever
Tool.
it is, you're gonna have to remember it.
Yes. Don't worry. I have this one picked out. It's ready to go. We're ready to rock.
We
Well,
look
this-
forward to picking the ones, hoping that people see them.
Well, this is a great thing I love about these two, especially here, is the stuff that you guys listen to. I was really checked out by that point. So when you talk about Offspring and things like that, I'm not into any of that. So I am learning through some of this stuff now and picking up some of that. So I love it. And I think you had mentioned that too, Brad, didn't you?
Oh yeah, I mean like
Your family
from-
life.
From somewhere in the 90s, I was raising kids and lost track of a lot of stuff. So I learned stuff. I'm still learning.
Yeah, right.
It's a good thing.
I went through the 90s thinking, man, the 90s suck because, you know, we don't have the 80s anymore. Knowing full well that after 85, the 80s it was kind of a dry spell. That there were, you know, but looking back now in the 90s, it's like, holy cow, did we have
It's good
some
stuff.
Well, you look back. I follow like things on Facebook. It just brings up like modern rock charts of this week and
Mm-hmm.
you know whatever year, and then I always go look at the '90s, and I'm like, God damn! Like you just took everything for granted, and what meme that always comes up is there's a stack of cassettes, and like all these came out within 30 days. In
Yes.
1991,
yep.
and it's
Yes.
like the Guns Illusions album, Nevermind, the Black album,
Yep.
Pearl Jam first album,
Yep.
and it's like.
That was all one.
You look at that,
Wow.
and I always argue that if you look at 1991, and not only within that 30-day window, but the year as a whole,
Yeah.
I think 1991 is probably one of the most, if not the most important year in rock and roll.
See, I would say 1986 as this album comes out, 5150 comes out. We got Slippery When Wet. I mean, you just have a. So that's that generational difference, right?
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
Yep. But
We're at
there are some
crossover.
notable points. So now, that's interesting because you say that with the 90s. I'm thinking with movies, it was with the 80s. If you take the time I was in high school from 1983 to 1987, and you look, there were like 10 to 15 at least blockbuster movies every year. Now we get what? Two,
Well,
if
that,
we're
that
lucky.
was in the
Is it?
those
and-
were in the days when studios would
yeah.
fund a block, and a blockbuster was a blockbuster for 6 months to a year.
how old were you in 1991?
9.
Okay. Well, I started listening to the radio when I was 4 or 5, I think, and I got into music really early. I'm kind of curious because I really don't go looking for new music right now, other than Taylor Swift. I mean, is
No,
there a lot?
Jesus.
Is there a lot of? Is the industry putting a lot of money into
Yes.
this?
There is stuff out there.
Yeah.
I don't personally search it out, but I know there is stuff.
Yeah.
Because even stuff like my daughter will listen to, she hasn't listened to much, but like Olivia Rodrigo, or whatever the hell her name is.
I have to play those at
Rodrigo, right?
dances. It's huge.
And I'm like,
She's huge.
this isn't so bad, you know? You can see little bit of that, you know, she's a rock star, but
Right.
she's,
Billie Eilish, Sabrina
20.
Carpenter,
Dinosaur Pileup, President, Bad Omens.
Bad Bunny.
Not bad.
no, I just had to throw that
I've
one.
always been kind of attuned to the college music scene, but to be honest with you, I just really haven't had the time to go seek out what they're doing now. I know in the alternative, like the actual genuine alternative, not the we don't know what bin to put this in. That stuff seems to be cyclical, and for a while now, the late '80s sound, the late '80s college sound, not the late '80s pop radio sound, that comes back a lot every few years.
The big thing that's also really popular right now, and I see it working with kids, being a teacher, is all, no, they don't like Elvis, but rap
Okay.
and the hip hop stuff. They all want the hip hop
yeah, they're
stuff.
getting into that. I don't know.
You know,
I never got into the rap or hip hop.
So it's everything's changing, right? And right.
Hold on to it long enough, it'll come back around and be popular.
But with
It'll
that,
be
we're
cool.
we're way than a few minutes over an hour here,
Oh,
so
I
we're
didn't
gonna
know
check
why.
out.
I didn't know we were
Are
limited.
we gonna get arrested?
We try to keep it to an hour. We try to tell
Well,
people.
yeah, but why cut off a good conversation?
Okay.
Jesus.
We got somewhere to go?
Yeah.
No, I don't. Hey, if you don't mind, go ahead and leave us a comment.
Yeah.
All of our adult
There's a
fans.
slider on the bottom of YouTube that
Does
you can.
anyone-
We got any
fast
comments?
forward.
Well,
Does
Ricky
anyone-
was just pointing out that DLR's playing in Moorhead on June 17th.
Yes, he is.
Ricky, go to that show and let us know how it was.
I was thinking Kenny should take all of us to that show as a
To what
expense.
show?
Buy pizza.
David Lee Roth.
Oh.
Oh, I was going DLR. Oh, now I get it when you said that.
Yeah, it's a business
It's
expense.
right over me.
Yeah, write it off.
Oh, hey, that's not a bad.
We'll do it live from.
Yeah,
live from David Lee
live from
Roth.
yeah, we'll do a tailgating special. From,
Well, since there are 6 of us, I think we're going to have to get a party bus.
I know a guy.
I know. A guy.
I
That's
do.
awesome.
I know a guy. Dennis, I'm calling you tomorrow.
So
So Lance, get your pick ready.
It is, damn it.
He's already ready. I mean, get ready for listening to Lance's.
some of us actually have a backup pick. We're 2 albums deep on the wall up there, just in case somebody picks one. This is the first week, by the way. Mike and I both at the same time put CDs on the wall. That's
Yeah.
what- that's
You
what-
started
I will.
you started a trend. I put
Yeah.
a CD for my
I could
next
put
one.
any. If I
Yeah.
want to put a cassette,
This was supposed to be the
Okay,
one
I'm
that
looking
you
at
had.
8. I'm looking at 8
this is
tracks when we get up.
and I know the CDs are starting to take off.
Bargain
I
bin.
watch this stuff, and you know we talk about albums a lot here, records, but me personally, I listen to CDs as much as albums. So
And CDs in the store are 25 to 30% of sales right
I
now.
only know one guy, my friend Bruce, who's another broadcast engineer, who actually had a turntable in his car. So, you know, you gotta
Yeah, you're a
see-
CD guy. You're a CD guy. And I think you got a little bit of
I have
both. don't you?
CDs. Yeah. I'm not a digital hater, but I lean on the analog.
Well, but this goes back to playback equipment. If you
have a good
got a
system.
good CD player with a good
Yeah.
DAC, it's going to be.
My uncle was
Give you the
stationed in
experience.
South Korea in the Army back in the 80s, and he obviously had access to boatloads of cheap CDs, whether through the PX or just over there, and he would ship them back to my grandma and grandpa's house, but he intentionally waited until he was done in the Army and got back, because he said, I know the CD players are going to get a lot better. I'm not going to bother getting one until I get back and the DACs get better and things like that. So when he got back, that was when he bought the player to listen to them.
An interesting fact about CD players, though, I've talked about this before, probably not on the show, but the first generation PS1s are sought after
Because
in
of the DAC.
in audiophile CD player guys, because they had the most powerful DAC at the time.
Yep.
And it's only like a small window of the first generation before Sony realized we don't need to spend the money on this
Yeah.
DAC because people don't give a shit about the sound quality on this. So they started using a cheaper DAC. But if you can get the very first PlayStation 1s, they're actually
And the way you'll know it is if they have RCA outputs.
they'll have RCA
Instead of
outputs
that,
I've been selling these things.
the fat plug that they put in for their adapter to video and stuff. And I have two of those, Michael, and they do sound pretty well. You have to use some decent interconnects, but even today there's some people that still swear by that sound. So yeah, little weird to play with them, and you know,
you got to use the remote. To,
yeah, you
Get
got to
on your
use the
controller.
remote to move the tracks. And
Well, I'm finally at the point where I own a stereo. I always used to have to listen things on a JCPenney boombox or the little portable Sony CD player or things like that. I never had a lot of money to put into stereo equipment, so I'm finally at a point now. And I got a wonderful Polk Audio sub here at Music and More. There is used equipment here to buy. And
Is that the one Eric gave you that day Kenny was gone?
you had a great deal on that one. You need,
yeah, I think it was like $5,
I
wasn't it?
think
you need some clip
Eric
subs?
paid you $50
it's
to
like,
take that.
Please just take that. But,
Down the till.
oh man, but yeah, so that it's great to go back and listen to some of this, and like you said, like they have bass now, like some of the hairband rock I listened to from the '80s, because now I have a truck with subwoofers. That was on my bucket list, and I threw in I think 21 Guns or something like that, thinking, all right, here we go, this is really gonna rock, and it's like, well, there's no low end in this whatsoever. What the heck's up with
But
that?
that kind of goes back to just the generational thing of how things were produced in different generations.
And the equipment didn't have it. We were listening to a lot of things you were listening to in the 80s. We were listening to on the boom boxes,
Yeah.
on portable CD
Right.
players, Discmans, things like that. So there wasn't a lot of inherent low end in any of those things anyway. So
Well-
why produce it to replicate something you're just not going to be, the average consumer isn't going to be able to ingest. So.
And as a content producer, I always say, for rule number one, know your audience. If you put something with a lot of low end in it, it's going to clip out and make a boombox sound horrible at volume anyway. So might as well just optimize it for what most people are going to be playing it on. So
Brad, is there a difference? The age-old question: is there a discernible difference in the type of cables you use, the interconnects, the quality of it?
Well, I think there's some. You can get into this and people can, go to war over it, I think.
Thousands and thousands of
Yeah,
dollars
you could
for
spend
interconnects
spend a lot. And then of course my theory is you have to have a system right off the bat to be able to reveal that difference anyway. But I think it does make a difference, and if you kind of have to shop around and listen to different things. The other thing is you have to let them break in.
Right.
I know that sounds crazy, and there are people that buy very expensive AC cords,
Yep.
that just massively expensive, and some of that stuff does make a difference. I
See,
mean,
I don't. Interconnects. I'm sold on interconnects and things like that, and I run XLR cables for most of my components, which provide a ground basically rather than
Yeah.
what
True
your
ground.
RCA. AC cables, as the electrician in me thinks that's a bullshit.
There
thing.
is, I
Because
question it too.
If I'm gonna spend $200 on a power cable and plug that into the 99-cent outlet on my wall that's been there for 40 years, what kind of performance is that cable going to give me?
Yeah.
Well,
And then the other thing is too that we have pretty good AC here. I mean, it's not. There are some communities that don't have good,
Right.
clean stuff.
Yep.
But I put in hospital grade outlets in my.
Receptacles?
Yeah.
And you can get audiophile.
He
grade
goes the
receptacles.
extra mile for everything.
You can get audiophile receptacles that are like gold plated.
Yeah.
And they
As far as
run
I'm concerned,
$50 on up.
if you don't have a power conditioner
I run
in,
power
in front
conditioner.
of your
on
fancy
everything,
ass
too.
power cable, then I declare shenanigans.
Well, just so you know, just for
I
the
don't
record
have
too,
any fancy AC.
Brad
cables.
even has a special mono needle just for playing his
Oh yeah,
mono records.
I have mono cartridges.
So
and there's a difference there. We could talk at length of this. We'll have to do it some other time.
Another
Maybe
deep
when
dive.
we feature a mono recording or something.
But
like
I think
that.
that's a great topic if we remember it to talk about too, because I want to talk about equipment and things like that too. Because I always talk to the kids. If you hear me all the time, we got to move off of that little flip top that's $80 to $100, right? And we got to get you into a receiver and some players and turntables and big speakers. And I've had some people come in and buy some setups, and it's good, and they love the difference, right? It makes a difference, and that'll keep getting bigger as you get more money.
Mike's speakers were $275,000 each.
He had
I had
to,
to sell 2 kidneys for them.
he took a second mortgage for his speakers. But with that, I love this because obviously, with that record, right, it's another way to say, right, with every record, there's a story to be told.
So silly.
You know, I was going to go to the jingle there, but the look on your face just killed it for me.
Wah, wah.
All right, well,
Here, it's in the jingle.
Bye, everyone.
bye.
Yeah, thanks for listening.
See you
to
next month.
Cheers.
Another
Listen to the
spin.
jingle.
But I'm-
Kenny's music and more, a place like no other. With records and cassettes, he's a music lover. Blues, rock, country, and more to explore. 10,000 vinyls and memorabilia galore. Come on down to the shop, there's something for all. Step into the world of music and more, where melodies and memories are in store. From Elvis to polka, we have it all. At Kenny's Music and More, you'll have a ball. A teacher and a DJ with a passion so deep. Kenny knows every lyric even in his sleep. His collection is unique, a treasure trove. In Bismarck, Indy, it's the place to just rove. In every record there's a story to be told. Into the world of music and more, where melodies and memories are in store. From Elvis to polka, we have it all. At Kenny's Music and More, you'll have a ball. You'll have a ball. In every record there's a story to be